Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of the My Car series from Ampro Engineering. What we are looking at here is kind of dumb, to put it mildly. Let me tell you a little story. About 4 years ago, my boss offered to sell me a half-used container of a 3D printing resin called Med 610 for a Stratasys printer at $600, which was quite a lot cheaper than they normally cost. So I decided this is gonna be perfect. I'm gonna build a completely 3D printed Hornet. So we printed the chassis, we printed the gearbox, only to discover that halfway through the print, the heads clogged and we had to cancel the print. So that meant I only had about this much of a chassis and part of the transmission halves. The issue with that is you can't just keep printing. So those went in the bin. Then we tried again. First we tried with the chassis and it was going really well. So we left it for the night, came back the next day and the printer overheated. And that was another chunk of material in the can. Ultimately, after all of these failed attempts, I didn't have enough to print the entire car. So I settled on all the wheels, a number of other parts like the lower suspension arms, basically the entire Ampro double wishbone set over here. That's all been printed. The front bumper, the rear sliders are printed. The wheel adapters, the lower shock mounts, the shock base, the shock collars, the little oil filler cap, the motor cap, flipping the car over. You see the Nerf bars are painted, the battery door. The battery door, because usually that has to bend here, this isn't very flexible plastic. In this case, it just slides straight back. It doesn't actually do that bendy bit. The trans braces in there. And, there's a different rear mount I did here instead of the standard one because I wasn't aware if I was going to go with a Ampro wing or if I was going to go with the standard Hornet body. Needless to say, I pressed on and this was what we came up with. I put it all together. There were still some failures in the print. These don't look particularly good. They're a little bit weird here at the back, but the sanding and some clear coat will help immensely. As I mentioned, this was done about 4 years or so ago, and it's been sitting in a box ever since because I realized that when I'm done with this project, this is going to be a shelf queen, and I hate shelf queens. So I immediately lost interest, especially when I realized, it'd be cool would be a clear body. I don't want to have a clear body on this. This chassis that you're looking at here was the metallic special Hornet. So my goal was to have the metallic body and then everything else clear. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know what? Forget it. It has to go away. So with that said, this is for sale. I don't know what the car's worth because it's not even functional. Whoever buys this and puts a body on it and puts stock Hornet tires on the rims, I feel that it can perhaps be driven. Barely, but I wouldn't jump it. I mean, this stuff's it's not like it's junky or anything, although I did crack this little piece here because I stepped on it a few days ago, so I glued it back together. But it's not like it's impossible, of doing anything at all. I wouldn't jump it or be mean to it, but this car ultimately is a shelf. But there are some little things that I did want to show off on the car. For example, it's pretty neat how the knuckles all clear and I've got all the correct hardware holding it all, well, at least all the correct Ampro hardware. The bumper looks pretty slick and clear. I really love the battery door. I think this would look really cool with an old school Sanyo NiCad battery pack. I think that would look really, really neat. Sitting on top of like a mirrored base. I also adore how the rear shocks look. Because they've never been used, there's no oil in them, there's no leakage on there, the shock bodies aren't scratched. It just really looks nice and clean. I don't know if anybody makes a clear servo or a clear receiver or a clear ASC, but you get the idea of what the car should actually have in there. Basically a lot of clear stuff. The rims were done in a single piece because that was going to be way cheaper and way easier and pretty much pointless to do a 3-piece wheel. Screw in some nice chrome or even brass hardware in there would look kind of cool to stand out. You can see how that looks. I printed these so that they were glossy on one side, but you can never do glossy on both. But a good coat of clear tends to make these things really pop. I really like the motor cover here. It looks really, really slick, nice and shiny. And then the slider with the little metal rod in there looks pretty cool too. So you see, I told you it goes all the way back and forth. There's proof right there. Weirdly, the transmission has full bearings. Why I did that, we will never know. Needless to say, this is just not for me. I'm not one to park one of these on my shelf. So if anybody out there is interested, I'm going to put it on eBay pretty soon. Hit me up with an offer. It's not going to be cheap, but it's not going to be expensive. And I understand that my $600 investment is down the toilet. But perhaps some collector out there will have a fantastic little car. I can make any of these available on Shapeways for their ultra detail print, which is translucent. Not quite to this level with the Med 610, but it won't be too far off. Anyway, folks, kind of a silly little video. I don't mean to make like a for sale plug over here, but I want to show the car off a little bit before I got rid of it, because I think some of you out there might find it a little interesting, if not utterly ridiculous. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you soon.